Hi, my name's Linda Savage, and I was born in 1946 in Toronto. I am the granddaughter of the Lockmaster at Kirkfield, and his name was Washington Irwin. He was there in 1907 as the helper when the locks opened, and he became the Lockmaster when Billy Job retired in 1922. My grandfather married a local woman, Hattie McNish, whose brothers owned farms just down the road here from where I'm sitting at the cottage on Balsam Lake. And they raised 7 boys and 2 girls at the locks. It was a hard life. They had different duties during different seasons. For instance, in the spring, grandfather would work on the roads around the area. He'd do all the lawns and gardens and lock repairs that needed to be done. In the summer, they kept up the lawns and things, the locks. They had to put the boats through. Now he was by himself, but all the local farmers would be on hand, and he would jam a great big crowbar and start banging it on the locks, and that would tell everybody to stop what they were doing and come and help to put the boats through. Of course, it wasn't done by electricity like today. They had to crank these things open. It took quite a while. They did painting and repairing on the houses that were on both sides of the locks. And then in the fall they had to do more repairs, do the shutdown, which was quite intensive. And they had a lot of volunteers and people they would hire for this. In the winter they would do ice cutting, look after the livestock, fix pumps and whatever else, other mechanical things at the locks that needed to be fixed. And they were gathering coal and wood for all their fires and so on. Grandfather's office was up in a wooden shack that used to be way at the very top of the locks. He'd have to climb up all the concrete stairs to get to the top of the locks and then climb beyond that up to the wooden shack, and that would be sort of his office. They also had other buildings on the grounds. First of all, the 2 houses. He lived in one as the helper, and then moved across with his family to the other as the head lockmaster in 1922. On the grounds, I believe they had a maintenance shed, mechanical shed if you were. It had, I think that was the one that had the electricity. There was no electricity in the houses, but that had electricity. The Irwins also had 1 phone. It was the only phone around, so people would rely on that. They also had a cow, which provided milk, and not everybody had a cow. And things would happen, for instance, in the building that had the electricity, my grandmother would go up there and do her ironing at night, and some of the local ladies would see the light on and they'd come over and maybe bring their knitting and catch up on the local gossip. So when there was boats going through, it was mostly commercial boats at the time, way back when. It got to be more and more busy as people realized they could do pleasure boating through the locks as well. Grandma Hattie and he had 7 boys and 2 girls, like I was saying. They all walked down 2 kilometers to go to the old Kirkfield School, which was at the time 1 or 2 rooms, I think. A bunch of boys had wanted to do things around there, so Grandpa was very ingenious. He would freeze the locks in the winter at the bottom, and he'd have one side for girls and one side for boys to go skating. So all the kids from the neighborhood would come and play there. Apparently they used to sit on the edge of the locks, and my aunt, one of the girls, and her friends would sing what they called cowboy songs back then, all the country music songs, and everybody went fishing. And of course, they would learn to swim in the locks too. My own mother, when she met my father, he threw her right in there because she didn't know how to swim. So she was 19 at the time, had to sink or swim. So that was her big experience with the locks. It was a tight community. Everybody knew each other. I have in my possession all the, I guess the logbooks for the locks for several years, starting in 1922. And it was more or less a journal of what happened every day, the daily works and things that they needed to be done. But also it was a journal about the community. Some of them were quite funny. For instance, May 13th, 1923, I believe, it says, "The telephone girl from Brecon fainted at the top of the locks." That would have been in the little shack. It took her an hour to come to in our house, and Dr. Ross was in attendance. He was the local doctor, and his name is throughout the books, coming to see different people. And Grandpa would be saying, "Well, today we worked on some machinery, and so-and-so brought his horses over for such and such. Oh yes, and this person died," or the funeral was well attended. So there was all sorts of little bits about the community in there as well. So they tried to get some fun out of things at the lock with the swimming and the fishing, but also they were close to Balsam Lake. And my grandfather was fortunate enough to marry Hattie McNish, whose brothers own farms down here, south part of Long Point. And so consequently, there was a lot of land available to my grandmother, and she sold some of it to my dad and other brothers. And we had cottages there. So growing up as a kid, I was here every summer with my family and cousins and so on. We had a wonderful time. Not many cottages, so we'd run back and forth. We'd go down to my grandmother's cottage down the way, and she had a lovely beach there. And we'd hear a cowbell from my mother, and that meant come home for lunch. So, but the lots all got sectioned off over the years, and the cousins, some of them didn't, they moved away and so on. It ended up now, fortunately, my sister and my brother and I all have places along the shore here, and we've all retired to this area. So occasionally the cousins can come and see how it all turned out. So it was lots of fun. And over the years we've met a lot of nice people here, and our grandchildren are now enjoying this area that their great-great-grandfather was involved with.